In front of an adoring British crowd, Lando Norris and McLaren put in a statement performance, with the young Brit earning his first podium of the year. A result like this looked almost impossible at the start of the season, so just how have McLaren done it, and what are their rivals saying? McLaren's poor start to the season. If you had offered Zak Brown at the start of the season a P2 in Silverstone, it would have bitten your hand off. The reason for that is the MCL 60 was arguably the slowest and worst performing car on the grid at the start of the year. There were warning signs from the off. Norris suggested that he thought the car was 2 or 3 months behind where it should be, and new team principal Andrea Stella admitted their program was running behind schedule. There were a number of reasons behind this failure to hit crucial deadlines. For a start, the end of the 2022 season saw a massive upheaval in the structure of McLaren, while the departure of Daniel Ricciardo was the one that hit the headlines. An arguably more important loss was that of team principal Andreas Seidel. The German had been a long-time employee of McLaren, having joined from Porsche in 2019, but with his former team Audi set to arrive in the sport, Seidel jumped ship to Sauber. McLaren decided to promote from within for his replacement, with racing director Andrea Stella moving up to the role of team principal. Even an employee who was familiar with the McLaren surroundings was always going to take time to adapt to life in his new role, but there was another man who was equally important, and perhaps the person most responsible for McLaren's shortcomings: James Key. James Key was a man who had plenty of experience on his CV. Stints at Ferrari, Williams, Sauber and Toro Rosso earned him the role of technical director at McLaren in July 2018, and the papaya-coloured team did enjoy some success during his tenure. The MCL 35M, used for the 2021 championship, was the quickest McLaren car since their title-winning days, and guided Norris to 4 podiums and Ricciardo to a famous race win in Monza. But it was the 2022 rule changes that saw McLaren come unstuck. Of all the winners and losers of the wide-sweeping rule changes, McLaren was definitely in the latter category. They had lost the pace of the year before and would finish 5th in the standings in a season that also cost Ricciardo his job. The 2022 season was written off as a bad day at the office, and Key was charged with pulling McLaren out of their slump. But the early signs of 2023 showed he had failed. CEO Brown was brutal. He fired Key and set about creating a dream technical team. Key's technical director role was split into 3 separate jobs, which each focused on a different area of the car. McLaren was ambitious in filling these roles. They poached Ferrari head of vehicle concept David Sanchez to become their director of car concept and performance. Another name through the door is that of Aston Martin's head of aero performance, Mariano Alperin. But perhaps the biggest name is Red Bull's current chief engineering officer, Rob Marshall. Like Sanchez, Marshall will join in 2024, but Norris has already praised their hirings. He said, "From the side of the team and the new people, very happy. Some big names are coming in, some great additions that have been in the sport for many years, who have been a crucial part in a lot of success in other teams. Knowledge and personnel are some of the biggest things in Formula One." Well, even if some of the staff will not join until 2024, McLaren have already improved dramatically, and the first sign of that improvement came in Austria. McLaren knew it was now or never to rescue their season, and so they got a shift on. Upgrades that were originally intended for Silverstone were pushed forward, but such was the time constraints the engineers were up against, it was only Norris who received the new parts for the race in Austria, but the difference was telling. Norris suddenly had pace in his car, and whereas he had previously struggled to stay in the points, the young Brit was now competing at the top end, and later revealed he had changed nothing about his driving style, and it was just the car was now quicker. During the sprint weekend, he qualified P4 for Sunday's race and P3 in Saturday's sprint, and although an early incident in the sprint sent him tumbling down, he finished P4 in the Grand Prix in what was up until then his best result of the year. But McLaren knew there was even more performance on the way. Silverstone. The team, based just 87 miles away, arrived at Silverstone in a confident mood. Oscar Piastri now had the same upgrades that Norris did in Austria, while Norris's car had been further improved, and from earliest Friday, it was clear that the car was quick. Norris qualified on the front row alongside Max Verstappen, while his teammate produced the best qualifying result of his F1 career in P3. And McLaren's weekend got even better when Norris beat Verstappen off the line and was leading at the end of lap 1. The quicker Red Bull would eventually regain the lead, but it was a battle later on that signalled just how quicker the McLaren was. An unfortunately timed safety car allowed Lewis Hamilton to overtake Piastri for P3, and when the Mercedes man pitted for softs while Norris was on hards, there was every expectation that Hamilton would be able to pull off the overtake. Except he didn't. Norris fought hard and well to keep the 7-time world champion behind despite being on slower tyres, and by the time his hards had warmed up, he was able to build a gap. He went on to finish 3 seconds ahead of his compatriot, and Hamilton was one of the most impressed people in the whole paddock. Hamilton and Russell reaction. Having come through the McLaren ranks, Hamilton cannot hide his happiness at seeing his former outfit back on the podium, even if it came at his current team's expense. Hamilton said, "That McLaren is a rocket ship. That speed is insane. I just want to say a big congratulations to Lando and to McLaren. It was my family, it was where I first started. So to see them back up there looking so strong, that thing was rapid through the high-speed corners. I was just wow, I couldn't keep up, but we had a good little battle on the restart." Hamilton was not the only Mercedes driver to be impressed. George Russell said, "McLarens were super impressive, they drove a great race. I feel bad for Oscar because he was driving really well, being super impressed by what he's been achieving this year. He was deserving of the podium finish. Unfortunately, safety car timing that hindered him and hindered myself. In the end, I think it was a relatively good weekend for us. Our pace compared to Ferrari, Aston and Red Bull was probably better than we thought. Those McLarens have just come from nowhere. We don't really know what to think." What next? With their P2 and P4 in Britain, McLaren added 30 points to their total, which sent them soaring above Alpine and into P5 in the constructors' standings. But what comes next for McLaren? Well, that's a question everyone in the MTC will be asking themselves. While the P1 spot this season has been consistently occupied by Verstappen, we've seen an incredible battle below him as momentum shifts from one team to another. Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes, and now McLaren have all enjoyed their time in the sun. But as we've seen with the others, performance in 2023 is very dependent on the track. Both Austria and Silverstone favour the characteristics of the MCL 60. It's a car that loves straights and loves high-speed corners, which makes for a potentially interesting ride at the next circuit on the calendar, the twisty and low-speed corners of the Hungaroring. McLaren will be keen to prove they're now strong everywhere, but after the highs of Silverstone, they could be in for a rough ride when Formula 1 heads to Hungary. As always, thanks for watching this video, and let us know in the comments just how you think McLaren will do in Hungary as well as the rest of the season. In the meantime, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a release here on the DRS Straight.